with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start off with correspondence.
We have resignation letters from Phil Berger
From Health and Wellness Committee.
and Bonnie Stockwell from Health and Wellness Committee, Adam Bundy from Green Options Committee, there's Elizabeth Hanley from the Community Housing Board, and David Doyle from the Community Housing.
And we also have a letter.
Yes. What's wrong with the application? too?
Yeah, this is to be read at the beginning
Okay.
of that resolution.
We have a letter from Gerard Siller. The town board, upon the advice of council, I am formally withdrawing my application presently before the town board. This decision was not made lightly. It has become clear throughout this process that the application was not evaluated with the level of neutrality and fairness that one should reasonably expect. The discussions and treatment of the matter suggested a degree of personal bias that made it unlikely that the application would receive an objective review based on its actual merits. Over the past year, the current composition of the town board has, in multiple situations, demonstrated a posture that appears increasingly unsupportive of local businesses. This lack of support, whether direct or indirect, ultimately affects the livelihoods of many individuals who have no involvement in the application process itself. It is a perspective that some members of the board appear to overlook despite the real impact on the community. Given these circumstances and after consultation with my attorney, I believe withdrawal is the most appropriate course of action at this time. Thank you for your attention. Sincerely, Gerard Siller.
Is there any public comment on any of the resolutions before we get started, except for resolutions that were subject to public hearings? Anyone on Zoom? Since Benjamin is attending via Zoom, we will not have him read resolutions, but because he's out for not here in person because of medical, that's an allowable reason that we'll let him be able to vote on things.
Mhm.
So.
All right. Whereas Bootsy SI LLC Michael Abel of 85 Shore Road has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to conduct site grading use approximately 879 cubic yards of soil material obtained from on-site excavations located outside of the wetlands regulated area within the adjacent regulated area in association with the construction of a proposed 4,654 square foot two-story dwelling, 5,710 square foot SFLA, with 1,219 square foot masonry patio, partially covered by an 877 square foot deck and 931 square foot one-story accessory garage, all located at least 100 feet from a wetlands and outside of the wetlands regulated area, and an 864 square foot infinity edge saltwater filtration swimming pool and spa with attached spillway, 100 square feet of which is located within the adjacent regulated area, located 97 feet from the wetlands. Install a 4-foot-high pool fence enclosure, fencing with gates. Install a new drinking water well, an IA sanitary system and stormwater drainage system outside of the wetlands regulated area. Install a new permeable gravel driveway and associated retaining walls outside of wetlands regulated area, and establish and perpetually maintain with native plantings a minimum 25-foot wide, approximately 24,258 square foot vegetative buffer adjacent to the freshwater wetlands boundary. All is depicted on the site plans prepared by Buttercup Design Group, last dated July 15th, 2025, and architectural plans prepared by James E. Nolan, AJA LLC, last dated September 17th, 2025. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:02 p.m. prevailing time on the 12th day of January, 2026, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas Merrill Rossofsky and Stuart Coleman, 31B Dickerson Drive, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands permit to demolish and remove from existing two-story dwelling a 243 square foot conditioned sunroom and 15 square feet chimney, and construct 166 square foot first floor renovation/addition with 14 square foot second floor expansion and 125 square feet balcony above, in place of 125 square foot portion of sunroom and 13 square foot portion of chimney, located plus or minus 94 feet from the wetlands. Construct 14 foot by 15 foot screen porch addition located a minimum of 100 feet from the wetlands. Demolish and remove existing 418 square foot deck and 824 square foot pool patio located plus or minus 64 square feet from the wetlands, and construct a 1,491 square foot raised deck with 6 foot by 21.5 foot trellis/roof over and 4 foot by 13 foot staircase located a minimum of 75 feet from wetlands. Demolish and remove existing 15 foot by 39 foot in-ground swimming pool located plus or minus 72 square feet from wetlands, and construct new 14 foot by 42 foot raised saltwater swimming pool with spa and automatic pool cover located plus or minus 72 square feet from wetlands. Stone coping located plus or minus 71 feet from wetlands. Remove 85 square feet gazebo and various stairways, retaining walls, and walkways. Remove existing 2,262 square foot asphalt driveway and install new pervious gravel driveway with placement of boulders to stabilize adjacent grade. Construct 5 foot wide ADA compliant ramp between driveway and dwelling and 4 foot wide ADA compliant ramp between dwelling and existing dock. Remove existing conventional septic system and install new IA system, sanitary system, both located outside wetlands regulated area. Install stormwater drainage system, truck in approximately 110 cubic yards of clean sand loam fill from an improved upland source to backfill existing pool shell and establish proposed grades adjacent to driveway, and establish a 25-foot wide non-disturbance/non-fertilization buffer adjacent to the wetlands boundary to be planted with native grasses, all as depicted on the site plan prepared by East End Architecture dated February 25th, 2025. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 129-7 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held on the 12th day of January 2026 at 6:04 p.m. prevailing time in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Whereas William Cummings, 3 Locust Avenue, has submitted a request for a 35 square foot exemption in the construction of a new 292 square foot second floor deck over existing covered porch. And whereas the town board has received and said request, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby approves the request, and that this shall extinguish the 100-foot one-time exemption in accordance with Chapter 139-3H of the Town Code. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Whereas the Waterways Management Advisory Council, WMAC, has recommended that the town board that the mooring waitlist procedures, the Condon Creek Town Dock waitlist procedures, and the Town Dock permit rules and regulations. And whereas the town board has reviewed and amended said documents, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts the mooring waitlist procedures, Condon Creek Town Dock waitlist procedures, and the Town Dock's permit rules and regulations. I believe there should be an update in here somewhere. The Waterways Management Advisory has recommended to the town board the update of the mooring list procedures, Condon Creek Town, yeah. All right, so moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carried. Be it resolved that the town board hereby sets a fee for any town dock permit enumerated in Town Code Section 53-5D as follows: $1,000 per slip per year and $350 per slip per year for an applicant who possesses a license or permit to harvest or sell shellfish or fish for commercial purposes. Such fee may be prorated for Deering Harbor Town Dock permits and Dickerson Creek Town Dock permits. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the Emergency Medical Service Advisory Board is hereby set to consist of 5 members. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas a vacancy exists on the West Neck Water District Board of Directors, and whereas the board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Dan Halstead is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the West Neck Water District Board of Directors for a term to expire on April 25th, 2028. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas the term of Peter McCracken as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board expires on December 31st, 2025, and whereas Mr. McCracken has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Peter McCracken is hereby reappointed to serve as a member and chair of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2028. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Dr. James Bevilacqua, a member of the Deer and Tick Committee, expired on June 24, 2025, and whereas Mr. Bevilacqua expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Dr. James Bevilacqua is hereby reappointed to serve as a member and chair of the Deer and Tick Committee for the term to expire June 24, 2028. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas pursuant to Section 31H of the Public Officers Law, a town officer must sign and file a constitutional oath of office within 30 days after the term of office begins. And whereas Lynn Colligan was appointed to serve as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and whereas Edward Cotta was appointed to serve as a volunteer for the Recreation Department for the year of 2025, and whereas Tim Sheehan was appointed to serve as volunteer for the Recreation Department for the year of 2025, whereas the above-mentioned persons have not yet signed and filed said constitutional oath of office, and whereas the town board desires to have the aforementioned persons serve the town of Shelter Island in their designated capacities, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby appoints the aforementioned persons to their designated positions. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Be it resolved that the supervisor or designee is hereby authorized and directed to execute the engagement agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Cullen and Danowski. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the Town of Shelter Island Recreation Department has received a generous donation for the purposes of sponsoring a Wednesday by the Water at Wades Beach from J.W. Picozzi in the amount of $600, and whereas the receipt of these funds was not anticipated at the time of the 2025 budget preparation, now therefore be it resolved that the 2025 Revenue Code A2205H miscellaneous donations is hereby increased by the amount of $600, and the 2025 expense code of A73104.400 youth recreational program to increase by 400. And be it further resolved that the town board and recreation department extended our gratitude to PW Grosser for their generous support. So move.
Second. J.W. Posey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the following 2025 budget transfers are hereby approved. $2,800 from A3120482 PD Boats Gas and Oil to A3120.200 PD Maintenance to cover overages and vehicle maintenance. $1,500 from A6772.485 Nutrition Van Maintenance and Fuel to A6772.484 Nutrition Office and Miscellaneous to cover overages. $61,801.69 from Highway Capital Reserve to the DA 9950 Highway Capital Projects and Equipment for the fourth payment on the 2023 Freightliner 108 SD with hook lift, plow, and sander. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Be it resolved that the following 2025 budget modifications are hereby approved. $10,037.79 increase to the 2025 A2680 Insurance Recovery Revenue Account to be funded by the reimbursement check from NYMER for claim TSHI 2025-010-001 for damage sustained to a police vehicle, and a $10,037.79 increase to the 2025 A3120.400 police maintenance account, and $12,844.07 increase to the 2025 A2680 insurance recovery revenue account to be funded by the reimbursement check from NYMER for claim number TSHI-2025-011-001 for damage caused by a tree branch to the police chief's vehicle, and a $12,844.07 increase to the 2025 A3120 400 police maintenance account. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
be it resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $348 from the DA 5140.447 highway and B&W outside contractors to the GIR USA Inc. at 548 Market Street, number 20601, San Francisco, California, zip code 94104, for gas and diesel software fees, dated 11/1/2025 through 10/31/2026. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that 2025 general claims numbered 1998 through 2190 in the amount of $134,068.02. 2025 highway claims numbered 232 through 266 in the amount of $71,239.91. 2025 community preservation fund claim number 29 in the amount of $29.53. And water quality improvement fund claim number 30 in the amount of $29.54 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of the same. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right, we will adjourn the regular meeting and start on some public hearings. So the first one is to reconvene Chad Pike, 6 Bluff Avenue dock application. So I will open it up for those who wish to speak.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. My name is John Alventano. I'm attorney with Kyle Fritz, representing the applicant. I'm also here with Kelly Rosado, who is speaking to the environmental points that were raised at the last hearing. And again, we appreciate you calling us first. We were here late.
Pretty much, yes.
Because we had done, we had gone so late and it seemed so long ago, could you sort of do an overview of the application, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
We were last before you on this end of October, and we had submitted previously a letter dated September 19th of 2025. We basically outlined the location of the Chad Pike dock. We do have materials that were previously submitted, which locates the proposed dock, and will be spoken to with specifics by Kelly Rosado. In essence, we are seeking to construct a 100-foot long dock at 6 Bluff Avenue on Shelter Island. Again, we had gone over the riparian rights. We are located on the shoreline of Shelter Island and therefore have the right of a riparian owner to extend a dock to make reasonable efforts to effectuate our riparian rights. And your code has been recently adopted back in April of this year, the town code section 53-8 sets forth the standards for a dock in the town, Shelter Island. So this is equivalent to a special permit, as you may be aware. This is a permit criteria. If you meet the requirements of the permit, it should be granted. I think our dock does comply with all the requirements of the town code. In particular, section 53-8, subsection A, the dock shall not exceed more than 100 feet. We do not exceed 100 feet. We are also not obstructing the passageways of other docks on our east and west. We are well short, your code speaks to a distance from the opposite shoreline. We are well inside that, as it is the town of Southold. As you'll hear from Kelly, we are also locating this in a suitable and unobstructed way for the public passage, right? So along the shoreline, there's an ability for, and that's shown in our diagram, there's the ability for the public to pass east and west or along the shoreline. So the dock does not inhibit the passage of the public's right of access along the waterfront. And again, we do not have any existing docks at the subject property. Subsection B discusses the length of the dock and the setbacks required. We are within the 30-foot setback on the southwest, and we are also within 63 feet of the north side. So we are not near, we are completely set back within the setbacks required under the town code. And again, the location of the dock as it extends northward does not impinge on any riparian rights of the neighboring property owners. As shorelines like this are basically straight, there's a perpendicular right of access that we have a right to under the riparian rights. We are not in any way affecting neighboring property owners from exercising or meeting the dock of their own. So there's no, it is a compliant location and does not impinge upon the riparian rights of the neighboring property owners. Subsection C speaks to the length and depth of the docks. For this dock, this is situated several thousand feet away from the adjoining property and the channel. We are only setting out to reach a depth of 2.5 feet, so we are well within 100 feet. It is a 100-foot long dock. Subsection C, sub 2, the private dock terminates at a point where the mean low depth is more than 2.5 feet. So we're not at a shallower depth. And as the board is aware, we've also received Army Corps and DEC permits for this location for the subject dock. Proposed dock only extends 100 feet from the offshore to reach a low water depth, and it does not exceed beyond the 100 feet as required under that subsection of the code. Private dock, again, this is subsection C3, reaches a depth of 4 feet, and therefore we do not need to exceed, because the maximum in this location could be 150 feet. We are short of that due to the depth of water that the dock reaches at its terminus. Again, the subsections dealing with the commercial docks do not apply. The width of this dock, which is subsection 6, does not apply. Then subsection D is the width of docks. This dock is no wider than 5 feet, so it meets the requirements of the width of the dock. There are no, subsection E is waterway illumination. We are complying with the proposed dock requirements to have downward facing lighting. This private dock is not storing or conveying fuel or sewage. It's not doing that, so we are compliant with that code section. We are proposing splashboards along this dock, as was previously approved by this board in the Sabin dock, and as we've spoken to by Kelly, splashboards do not extend down to the underwater land under the dock, so it does not affect the literal drift of the sediments. And as was proven and as will be discussed, the Sabin dock has been in existence for a number of years, and there has not been any signs of erosion. There's actually been some accretion in this location of the Sabin dock. So we would fall within that same parameter. Again, there is no boat lift associated with this dock. In our opinion, we are compliant with the town code requirements for a dock in this location. If you don't have any questions for me specifically right now, I'd like to have Kelly discuss some of the questions that were raised at the last hearing with regard to the underwater environment and things of that nature. Thank you.
everyone. So at the,
Just state your name.
Kelly Rosado with Land Use Psychological Services, representing the applicant. Just going to kind of summarize the September 16th, 2025 submission that I made to the town board with regards to comments we had received, I believe at the August or July hearing, whenever that one was. First off being that, the site contains pristine beach habitat and native vegetation that will be impacted. I went out and did a site assessment, and yes, there's some really nice beach and dune vegetation out at the site. The dock is proposed seaward of that vegetation by several feet. That one provides a path for people to walk along the beach without having to go up into the vegetation, and is also landward of high water, so they can walk along the beach even during high tide without having to go in the water or go into the vegetation. No part of the dock is proposed over the vegetation, so there won't be any impact to that vegetation. And in the letter, I had provided a species list of what was observed up there. Like I said, it's a really nice habitat. There was another comment regarding impacts to submerged aquatic vegetation, but there is no submerged aquatic vegetation present in this area, according to all of the state seagrass mappers, aerial photographs. It's great. Nearmap flies the area 3 times a year, and you can really see SAV in some of the images when it's present. There isn't any here. You do see some on the north side of this area, like north of the ferry dock, that's visible in the aerials, but just not in this location. So the dock won't impact any submerged aquatic vegetation. And then the last one, as John pointed out, someone mentioned that the shoreline exhibits significant erosion, and that the dock that's to the south, the Saban dock, has narrowed the beach. We did an analysis of the edge of the beach using aerial photographs. Since the dock was constructed, we looked at 2022 from prior to when the dock was put in, and then 2025, 3 years later. We did not see any erosion. If anything, there looks to be accretion on the north side of the dock, or what's that, northeast side of the dock, so towards the subject property. And that was also included in the September 16th submission. And the last time we were here, we were also asked to look at the safety of the dock versus moorings. We took a look at the existing moorings that are used by the property owner and sort of the radius of the vessels. We got some great images that show the boat in multiple different directions, and we're able to do a 360-degree, kind of like I said, a radius circle to just see the area of impact. And we did submit last time we were here in October an exhibit that just showed that, and then showed the fact that the dock itself is really going to localize where the vessels come in and out, where the vessels will be. So it's actually going to decrease that sort of safety factor. It's safer to use the dock than a mooring for both people in the water, for the property owner, and that's all in that exhibit, as well as the method that we used to get that. So that's kind of the summary of where we've been to date. And again, if you have any questions on here as well.
I just want to raise 2 other points. I know that there was a comment raised at the last meeting that I believe the statement was that we received our DEC permit in the interim when there was a change in your code. A DEC permit predates your code amendments. I believe a comment was made to we should apply under the old dock regulations. I don't think that's accurate. Under the law, we have to operate under the town code as it exists today. So the issue that was raised may have been misplaced, or it's a misunderstanding of that concept. The DEC permits operate under their own parameters. They are granted under the DEC requirements. We then also went to the Army Corps. We now come to you, and as your permit requirements are, we need to have the Army Corps and the DEC in place before we come here. So with that being said, we do fall under the fact that the DEC permit was issued when your code was in flux has no bearing on our application. Our requirement is to meet your code as it exists today. And we have demonstrated that we do meet that requirement. In addition, I do have a copy of the local law that was filed, and that legislative intent does speak to many requirements that the town code looks at, or the town board looks at, and also speaks to recognizing the riparian rights of the upland owner. So you have that balance that you need to strike. We believe your regulations give us the ability to construct a dock that we meet the requirements for. We are not seeking any variances to extend beyond that or ask for any leniency from the town, from its town code. We are falling squarely within the rights that we have been granted by the town code. And, we are here to respond to the other issues that were raised, again, with respect to the navigational hazards. Again, as Kelly has alluded to, this is the creation of a fixed location for access. And in addition, my client has young children and also elderly parents. To get them onto a mooring is a challenge, to say the least. The concept here of the dock is to provide that right of access to a fixed dock, to a pier, which is the best way for my client and his family to enjoy the rights that they have to access the water through the dock. So I just want to add that to those 2 points.
We didn't have an opportunity to finish our discussion on the,
You have to state your name for the record.
my name is Brian Moorhead, and I manage the property that this dock's being built on. And paperwork that I have right there was actually communication with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I tried to get full information as well as seeing if they were able to attend the meeting, just to explain some of the things about their approval process. And that was the first answer that they gave me in my communication with Mr. Gerard. But there are 6 actual conservation and underwater management agencies, government agencies that are part of this particular process on our dock for the initial approval. And one thing that also, which I thought was very interesting, is they acknowledge in the actual approval from the Army Corps of Engineers that the area has wave action, and that they're actually approving the splashboards because of that wave action. And they also identified that there may be property damage if there wasn't the splashboards to the actual boats that are going to be tied up to it. The deviation from that, and it sounds like there was a proposal or an option that, well, what if you didn't have the splashboards? Well, they don't look at that as a deviation. They don't want any modifications to this particular plan that we've actually proposed to you. And that's also the same with the DEC. I just wanted to find a way to talk about it. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the town board have questions? No. I do have one. Benjamin, you're a liaison to WMAC. They have not issued a report on this that I'm aware of, correct?
No, I don't think so. They discussed it. There was a vote. We know what the vote was. It was pretty much split. And it was left to the town board.
Left to the town board. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I thought that might have been what happened.
Okay. Perfect. So we know WMAC report. Okay. I'll open it up to the public. I saw Stella, you started to get up before.
Sorry, shut out of the gate a little too fast. I have a very quick comment, and this really is for the attorneys, I think, to hammer out. But if you read the town code, section 53-2 under applicability B, it says this chapter shall apply to all dock applications other than those for which an application to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation was submitted prior to February 13th, 2024, which shall be subject to the regulations and reviewed under the standards set forth as of that date. So I don't know, I mean, we've been going under the premise that this is under the old dock, code, and Lori will make some comments after me, but I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lori. Since you were referenced in your standing.
Good evening, Lori Beard Raymond. I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of the Silver Island Heights Property Owners Corporation. And I have a letter with some appendices for you. I'll leave two for the members that aren't here. Extras?
Yep, thank you. Prepared.
Sure, I can do that. Copy. Shelter Island Heights, I'm gonna read this letter into the record. The Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation, referred to as POC or Heights in many cases, respectfully submits this letter in continued opposition to this dock application. The Heights speaks not only as an abutting neighbor, but also as a steward of one of Shelter Island's most historic and visually significant shorelines. The town board has a clear duty to weigh private convenience against the public good. Here, the balance is not even close. The proposed dock is in an unsafe location and fundamentally inconsistent with the preservation of our community's character and shared waterfront. Number one, riparian rights. The applicant already has ample access. Riparian rights riparian rights guarantee reasonable, not unlimited, access to navigable waters. The applicant already enjoys such access through two existing moorings. Therefore, the right is satisfied. The proposed 110-foot dock with a 27-foot L shape at the seaward end, plus a 70-foot splashboard system, 2 pile dolphins, 3 ladders, and a bench totaling 685 square feet, far exceed what is necessary for reasonable access and ventures into the realm of excess. The Heights riparian rights, the applicant claims that the proposed dock is 354 feet from the beach club swim ropes, is misleading. The Heights Beach Club westerly property line, and thus its own riparian zone, extends beyond the roped area. Since 1872, swimmers and cabana renters have consistently used the waters outside the ropes. The Six Bluff and the Beach Club property lines are separated by only 96.8 feet. See Appendix A, surveys and illustrations attached. Town code prohibits vessel operation within 100 feet of a bathing beach. In fact, the same reasoning that led the town to reject the proposed Sunset Beach dock at Crescent Beach applies here. Rights to neighboring property owners. Riparian rights are not absolute and must be balanced with those of the neighboring owners. The dock and this proposed location would unreasonably impair the quiet enjoyment and safe use of the water by swimmers, sailors, paddleboarders, and those fishing from the shore. Granting this permit would elevate one landowner's private convenience above the collective rights of other taxpayers. Primary dwelling absent. The property is zoned AA using zoning code chapter 133-7C1, accessory use, a permitted principal use to a one-family dwelling. Zoning code chapter 133-7E1B allows a private dock only for the personal use of the occupants of the premises, not merely the owner. In 2020, the dock code that this application falls under, Chapter 153-11A calls for water frontage setbacks based on the location of the principal dwelling. Here, the primary structure required to support a private accessory dock is not present. The lot is vacant, except for a stair down to the beach. Public interest and safety concerns. Existing hazards. The area is already crowded with 3 moorings, 2 belonging to this applicant and 1 to a neighbor. It has already demonstrated a clear safety risk. As documented in the head lifeguard Brianna Cybolski's letter, which is the Appendix B to this document, and the video evidence, which I have to give to you, Appendix C, on July 29th, 2025, the vessel, untied from one of those moorings, lost power and drifted towards the beach club dock, forcing the lifeguards to evacuate the swimmers from the water. Allowing an additional structure in this already hazardous location would be recklessly increasing danger. The applicant has not stated any intention to remove the existing moorings if the dock is approved, compounding the threat. Prior to precedent, it's distinctly different. Comparisons to the 2022 Prospect Avenue dock made by the applicant's counsel are inappropriate. That structure, which was also opposed by the Heights, was located at a greater distance from the beach club property line. Each application must be judged by its own merits, and this site is uniquely unsuitable due to its proximity to a bathing beach. Impediment to public access. Section 53-11A of the dock code requires unobstructed public passage. The Costello Marine Plan, Appendix D to this document, shows a 30-foot ramp that appears to be less than 4 feet from the beach grass. However, the photos submitted dated September 19th, 2025 by Farrell Fritz letter, Appendix E to this document, show the seaweed touching the beach grass. This means that at high tide, as high tides become more extreme and more frequent, the public will ineffectively be forced to trample protected vegetation or be unable to pass at all because they'll be in the water. Worse still, because the ramp is above the high water mark and rests on private property, walkers may feel intimidated as no trespassing. These disturbing effects directly affect the town code's dock mandate for unrestricted access and the town's wetland code, which aims to protect the environment. Number 3, broader public interest. Expert recommendation. Dock Code Section 53.9.1 requires consideration by the Waterways Committee's recommendations. Their detailed deliberations showed extraordinary strong opposition, with members calling this a bad location, very exposed, subject to hazardous southwest wakes. Even the 2 votes that were in favor of the proposal submitted conceded that while the dock might technically comply, in their words, it was not the public's best interest. Misleading comparisons. Council's assertion that the beach club existing dock justifies the applicant's proposal is unfounded. The 84-foot beach club dock, which does not allow boats to dock, has been a historic, non-conforming structure for more than 150 years. Likewise, comparing private recreational boaters near a bathing beach to North Ferry, whose captains hold U.S. Coast Guard credentials and operate vehicles with redundant safety systems, is wholly inappropriate comparison. Preservation and scenic resources. The Heights Beach Club, built in 1872 as the Prospect House Bathing Pavilion, predates residential development along the shoreline and defines the character of the Heights Historic District. Its shoreline is the iconic vista encountered for those arriving to Shelter Island, introducing more docks would create a dense arena-like appearance and erode historic views which are expressly protected under the town's comprehensive plan. Reasonable alternatives. The applicant has practical, safe, and legal alternatives. The existing moorings provide reasonable access to the navigable water. In addition, as a member of the Shelter Island Yacht Club, the applicant has access to secure docking facilities that meet all functional needs without compromising public safety, access, neighboring rights, or historic resources. In conclusion, the town board has an obligation to safeguard public safety, protect historic and environmental resources, and preserve the character of Shelter Island's waterfront as mandated by the town code and the comprehensive plan. This application fails those tests. It endangers swimmers, obstructs public access, damages historic vistas, and places one homeowner's convenience above the rights and safety of the broader community. For these reasons, the Heights respectfully but firmly urges the town board to close this hearing tonight and deny the application in its entirety. And Lori Beard Raymond, on behalf of the Shelter Island Board of Directors of the Heights, I would like to note that the next 3 dock hearings all have private residences, where this one does not. And here is the flashcard with the video.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the physical audience who wishes to speak? Tim?
Tim Patel, I live at 8 Bluff Avenue, property adjacent to the Pike property. Property is owned by my niece Sharon Edwards and myself. We own this property, not my niece and I, but our family's owned the property since 1950. Actually, I have a couple of questions.
Your questions have to be directed to the
yeah,
board,
sorry.
and then the applicant can choose to.
No, I just want this, you gave me this at the last meeting, and it shows the 2 moorings that are the Pike moorings, and then this one over here is the neighbor's mooring. If I remember correctly, one of the boats that they're interested in docking here is a 26 or 27-foot boat, is that correct?
I'm not sure the actual size of the boat, so it would be changing. It's
Actually, no, I'm sorry, it was bigger than that. I thought it was 36, a 36-foot boat. Brian, do you know?
It could possibly be. There's also a 27, there's also a 21. So which one will actually be on that dock at any given time is not.
No, I think what I'm asking actually is that those are the 2 boats that are currently at the moorings?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding, and I may have misheard, but I can certainly go back to look at the meeting, the hearing. But my understanding was there was a 3rd boat that the family was interested at putting at the dock, which is around 36 feet.
I don't know. I don't see that even being relevant to having a dock. If the
Okay.
dock's able to accommodate a inflatable, a pleasure boat, not a cabin cruiser or anything like that.
No, I understand.
So I think that.
We should, we'll just note,
asked, we'll answer.
yes, we should note the questions and then,
Okay, so the reason I'm asking this question is because in this diagram, you show the moorings and the drift of the boats. So my question is if there is a 36-foot boat, how is this going to be maneuvered depending on the direction of the wind and the tide? I just raised that question. It seems like a very tight area for 2 moorings and then another mooring next door. And if you have a larger boat to try to maneuver those through all of this to get to the dock. My other question is, how many moorings does the family propose to keep? The 2 moorings that already exist? No, we'll answer.
I was gonna say, well,
Is it-
There's no answer.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Well, no, I just asked because again, in the sheet, the purpose of the proposed dock is to provide safe access to the entire family and to use, it is imperative to note the proposed dock does not change the number of vessels operating in this area. So if there's 2 boats, but if you had a 3rd boat, I'm just asking, all those 3 boats, if there's a 3rd boat, going to be at the dock, or are you going to keep the moorings? And Brian had said at one of the hearings that they would like to possibly keep the moorings in case of storms. So I'm just asking that question. Okay, John, you've talked several times about riparian rights, and many times actually about the Pikes family's riparian rights. And also neighbors' riparian rights. So I'm a neighbor and I have riparian rights. I do not intend to put in a dock, but how do we balance the riparian rights of one neighbor who wants to put in a dock, which in my mind is very intrusive, to a neighbor's riparian rights to enjoy the nature of the area as it is. I just find that in the conversations about docks that it seems those who want to put in docks seem to have sort of more riparian rights. Those are emphasized over all other neighbors who don't want to have docks. And I believe that my riparian rights as a taxpayer should be respected equally as those who want to put in a dock. The Army Corps and the DEC approved this application, but I would like to point out that neither the DEC nor the Army Corps of Engineers actually come and visit the sites on this island when they make these approvals. Splashboards. Lori's already mentioned, and I've also mentioned previously, the WMAC, even those who've approved the docks to adhere to the code, have pointed out this is a fairly inappropriate place for a dock because of wind, wave action, tide, and other concerns. And yet a family member at one of the hearings talked about how, in a sense, disagreed and said that he's actually taken his splashboard to Sunset Beach. And therefore, he felt that this is not really a very rough area. So I would just like to establish which is the case. Is it a rough, inappropriate area, or is it a calm area? And if it's a calm area, then why do we need the splashboards? Laura has already mentioned the higher tides that we have, and indeed, as someone who utilizes that beach quite often during the summer, I'm a witness to the fact that we now do indeed have higher tides, and they, not regularly, but they do come up to the beach grass. And finally, if approved, I would like to have a new survey at the owner's cost to establish the exact markers, which are no longer there, to show the property line, our property line, and their property line, or the shared property line, actually, to make sure that we are actually getting 30 feet from our property line. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, Supervisor Rainbow Blockhouse and board members. My name is Rain Walker, and I reside at 3 Bluff Avenue. As background to what I'm about to say, it's about when this started months ago, you might recall that a petition was submitted with it was 200 people, a lot of them from the Heights, but a lot of them not from the Heights, objecting to this dock. And for reasons that the Heights Association has talked about and Tim has touched on. That's just the background, just remember that. I'm here to ask you, please, to decline the application. It is unsafe. Again, as we talked, there's only approximately 100 feet from the easterly property line of the proposed dock to the westerly property line of the community swim beach area and recreation of the Heights Beach Club. It's a recipe for disaster. Add in the powerful tidal current, the strong prevailing wind, and the precariously close mooring at the Lee Bevan Place, next door neighbor, navigation becomes even more hazardous. It would be dangerous for swimmers and others enjoying the open water and shoreline for recreation purposes. And all of us know what that beach line looks like and how beautiful it is and how much people participate in its swimming opportunity. A really important point that I would like to add is that all current property owners along the bluff knew that they were buying property next to a 150-year-old community swimming area. It's part of a swimming beach in a historic neighborhood. Surely the community members and the local community have their own rights, as Mr. Pertel talked about, to the beach and a safe swimming area grandfathered in. Again, we have rights as a community to have a swim area. I urge you to decline the application for a dock. Please protect these swimming areas and let us enjoy the White Hills Community Recreation Area as they have for over a century and a half. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Let me go through everybody.
Yeah.
And give everyone a first chance. Kristen?
I'm Kirsten Lewis. I live on 22 Wesley Avenue. Have had a house there since 1977, and I'm basically here to back up what Lorraine said and Tim. And I would like to say that, I mean, I know you've done your homework, the boy's done a fantastic job of homework, but has he been actually down on the beach? Has he seen how far up the water goes at high tide? Has he seen how the wave action is? I doubt it. The edge of that supposed pier will be practically up to the beach grass. There's absolutely no other way they can do it. So it stops people like me who go on the beach practically every day. And everybody else, I mean, it's just horrendous. And to compare that dock with the Sapin dock is not correct either, because that's way at the end of the beach, and beyond that is a big curve in the land. So the wave action is totally different. That should be noted. And I personally witnessed this inflatable boat going crashing into the beach club pier. It was pretty frightening. And there's no reason why that is never going to happen again. Thank you.
Anyone else in the physical audience before I go to the Zoom audience? Anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak to this application? Yeah.
Yeah, hi there. I would just like to raise the situation that the town board has recently declined a dock application at One Tar Kettle because of its detriment to the scenic vistas of the area. And I too view this stretch of beach unique to Shelter Island as a scenic vista. And in accordance to our comprehensive plan, this should also be taken into consideration. When you look at where this dock is proposed to be located, it is bisecting this entire stretch of shoreline. And with the activity of 3 additional boats in the area, I just see it as changing one's approach to the island and the welcoming nature of the beach that exists there. And I would ask you to, again, deny this dock application on those grounds as well. It's the same situation as the one on One Tar Kettle. So I ask you to take that into consideration and close this public hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. John Featherman?
Hi. I was hoping I could answer a couple of the questions raised earlier. For the first question was about removing mooring balls. I believe Brian's intention was to keep one mooring ball in case of storm, but the intention is not to have boats on the mooring balls and the dock. The dock is to replace the mooring balls, and the ask was to keep a ball if there was the inopportunity to remove the boat from the dock to save, whatever cockles in the case of a big storm event. The intention is not to drive boats to the fixed pier, the dock, around boats on the swing of a mooring ball whatsoever. Brian, I think you could illustrate there in person better than I can explain over Zoom how one would approach the fixed dock depending on wind, tide, weather, whatever else is going on. So there isn't maneuvering around existing mooring balls other than the neighbors closest to the Shelter Island Beach Club. I think that hopefully answers that question, maybe not. Those images were drawn with a 36-inch boat on tether and a 27-inch boat on tether. And those were the vessels that we're looking to place physically on the dock. As far as boats breaking away, another difficulty of a mooring ball, and another reason to ask for the safety of the dock itself, having multiple attachment points for the boats, for the users, and a safer approach, safer handling, safer tying off of the vessels. I think that answers a few of the questions out there. Were there any more that I could answer?
Not at the moment. Is there anyone else on Zoom who wishes to speak? Tim, I know you wanted a second shot.
I just said two.
Yeah, come on up.
Tim Bertel again at Big Bluff Avenue. Two things. One is, for me, it's not just a question of this one dock. It's also a question of another dock, which has an application on the other side of our property. So actually, should the Pike dock and the Malin dock both come in, we will be surrounded by docks. And then you have the house up the hill, the former Riche House, which also has beach access. So conceivably, they could have a dock. And the people at Devon could possibly have a dock. So it's not just a matter of the Sabin dock and the potential of the Pike dock, it's actually the potential for 1, 2, 3 more docks. And again, what about our riparian rights to enjoy the beach and that whole area as we have enjoyed it? The other thing I want to say, and this is probably more hypothetical, but the houses change owners frequently in Shelter Island now. So at some point in the future, and this probably isn't really relevant, but I'll say it anyway, a new owner could come in and have a different kind of vessel that they want to put there, even a larger vessel. So what's to control the size of the vessels that are being docked at these docks?
Yeah. John, you wanted to come back up?
Yep. Again, John Armentano, I'd like to address some of the comments that have been raised by the community. And while we appreciate the concerns, no one would be attaching a boat to let it careen off into a swim area. So I think that is hypothetical. That doesn't really have its place, although accidents may happen. The issues that were raised, I think, with respect to the primary dwelling and the accessory use, as this board is aware, this has been an assemblage of property. So the main house is owned by the property owner. So this entirety of the properties are held together. It's an accumulation of property. So we have, this is not an accessory use without a primary dwelling. The primary dwelling is further up on the bluff. This is an accessory use. So that is not a valid concern that was raised in that vicinity, that we are using an accessory use without the primary use. Again, as this board is aware, the scenic vistas are not part of a riparian right. There's no entitlement to a scenic vista unless you have a scenic easement. The idea that there will be docks seen is equivalent to saying, well, I will see a boat in the water. I mean, there is a dock, it is a fixed structure. The mooring is a fixed structure. The boat sits there. There's no riparian right to a scenic vista, nor is there is there anything in the code in particular, I want to focus the board's attention, where specifically under this section of the code, this code does not discuss scenic rights, it does not discuss how many boats can be docked. It just requires that certain criteria be met. The dock is of a certain length, it does not extend, nor does it create any navigational hazards. As you have heard multiple times from our experts, and I appreciate people's opinion on things, we have brought the experts to speak to these issues. The concerns of a hypothetical issue have been addressed by our experts. The experts are entitled to deference in their opinion. I'm entitled to deference on the law with respect to riparian rights. The concerns that what can happen to another riparian right owner, the right of a riparian owner is very specific under the law. And it comes from the Court of Appeals, and it speaks to the right of access, comprehends the reasonable, safe, and convenient use of the foreshore, which is the area between the high tide and the depth of the water that you need to reach, which is called the outshore, for navigation, fishing, and other purposes belonging to the riparian owner. And the right to build a pier is considered wharfing out. That is a critical aspect of riparian rights. That was held by the Court of Appeals in Commander Oil. There is a clear right of wharfing out, which in this case is a pier. The right of access, regardless of the fact that there is a mooring ball, does not limit the property owner's right to construct a dock. It is one of the rights that a riparian landowner holds, and he has a right to exercise that right. And your code speaks to that, because your code then goes on to say, you can build a dock. There is no prohibition of docks. I want to be clear with this for the board's interest. There is case law that speaks to this as well. There is a limitation in navigation, New York State Navigation Law 46A sub 2, and it allows municipalities to amend regulations for the construction of docks. It does not allow the prohibition of docks. So I want to be clear with the board to take pause. You're hearing a lot of residents say, deny this dock. Your code does not speak to that, nor does state law speak to that. You cannot prohibit unless it is beyond what is required by this code. So I want to be very clear. We are completely within the four corners of your code. The prohibition of a dock here would be subject to legal challenge. I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm just saying that the idea here is that I understand the community doesn't want this dock. It's not their property. The rights of other riparian owners do not supersede, nor do the others yield to other riparian owners. No one is superior to the other. And there was a question asked by Tom. He said, well, how can I exercise my riparian rights? The riparian rights are a right to access the water. There is no prohibition from the location of this dock to his right of access. We are within the setbacks. This is a perpendicular dock. We fall under the state law that speaks to this. I can quote the section, but a perpendicular dock runs perpendicular to the shoreline at a right angle. That is all we are doing in this location. We are not flaring in anyone's direction. We're not edging into the swimming area. The swimming area is a considerable distance from us. There is no one who is swimming outside that area. And even if they are, they would be like anyone else in the water. There's a boat and there may be a swimmer, but that is not a reason to prohibit docks. The fact that people want to swim, you're swimming out into the offshore. The offshore is considered, beyond where it becomes a navigable channel. If people want to swim in a navigable channel, they do that at their own risk. There should be no prohibition of this dock because of what may be an adventurous swimmer. The point I wanted to raise again was the concept that there is a high tide shift, that the tides are rising. The right of public access exists from the high water mark to the low water mark. So wherever that line shifts, it's an ambulatory line, it's not fixed. It moves. When the high tide moves, so does the right of access. This dock has been designed to provide the right of the public to cross the foreshore, which is the area between the high and the low water mark. We meet that code section. So the concept that the tides will be rising means that the area of public access rises with the tide. All boats rise with the tide. The public access rises with the tide. So there's no violation of that requirement under the code. Again, there was another point raised about balancing the other rights of a riparian right owner. Again, that is done through case law. This code does not speak to that sense of balancing. It speaks to, if you meet these requirements, the permit will be granted. You created this, as I said before, as a special permit, and that makes sense. And the fact that other docks have been built, Sapin Dock is a perfect example. It was built under the new code. The fact that it is a distance from this dock has no relevance. The fact that it was granted by this board sets forth a precedent. That to go against that precedent is a dangerous place for the board to be as well. So I'm cautioning the board. We've heard a lot of public comment about the issue, but it does boil down to some legal issues which should be considered by this board. Again, we can answer any other questions that I think may have been raised. I think you heard from John Featherman, who is a representative of the applicant, who did speak to the mooring question. The concerns as to how large of a boat can be moored here or tied up to the dock, it is driven by the length of the beam and the depth of water. You can't park the Queen Mary here, we all understand that. The DEC grants permits for these docks so that you have to have 2.5 feet of free water. So the dimensions of the boat are not technically before this board's purview. You have granted us the right to a dock which reaches the 2.5 foot depth. That is the type of boat that will be there. There's no limitations that this board can place on the length of dock. It's done by the size of boat. It is self-limiting by the length of the dock itself. If the dock was longer, a larger boat could be placed here. The fact that we are limited to 100 feet definitely limits the size of the boat. And the question about how many boats does not really fall within the purview. Again, that question was raised, somewhat of a question that was raised to me. The answer is the limitations are the space that's allocated on the dock will limit the number of boats. But again, that is not part of this code's purview. This code does not look to that question, nor should it need to be answered by the applicant. But we can answer that question if we can at this time. I may want to close with a couple more comments, but I think there were some other technical.
Just a couple points with respect to, John alluded to, public access along the beach. Mean high water going up to the beach grass and impeding people being able to walk along the beach without having to go to the beach grass has nothing to do with whether there's a dock there or not. That's a completely separate issue. The discussion with regard to the structures, the exhibit that was submitted over this summer, and I forget if it was July or August, they all went together at this point, just was meant to point out the fact that this is not a pristine, undeveloped natural shoreline. This dock is proposed within a shoreline that has several existing structures, bulkheads, groins, the ferry docks, other docks. That was the intent. It's not to make comparison as to a captain of a ferry versus, the homeowner, just to make the point that this is not an undeveloped shoreline. And then with regards to the safety concerns, again, there are already vessels out here operating out here. The dock actually makes it safer because these vessels will go in and out of one specific place. Boats get tied up with multiple lines on a dock, not a single line on a mooring. So the chances of a vessel bringing an incident like what happened over the summer happening from a dock is actually significantly less than the existing moorings because they're redundant features, safety features, and again, multiple lines if the buses are done, so. That's what I think.
And again, we just received this document from Shelter Island, but just to some of the points that were raised, I think one comment here is that there are reasonable alternatives. That's a variance standard. The fact of a reasonable alternative is something that should be considered under a variance standard. There is nothing in your code, again, that speaks to the reasonable alternative. We are falling squarely within the permit criteria. A reasonable alternative does not mean, and again, I stressed this point before, is not the prohibition of a dock. That is not a reasonable alternative to a riparian right, which has the right of wharfage, which has been placed in your code. You have placed a dock permit criteria. The fact that I heard there was a denial of a dock for a scenic purpose, I'm not sure that we fall within that criteria, nor is that a criteria that this board should consider in denying these applications. It clearly is not part of what this code speaks to. So again, the fact that one was denied for a scenic concern, while I have no idea what that scenic concern was and how the board decided to deny that, we do not fall under that criteria, nor is that criteria listed in your code. So I would suggest to you that the idea that a scenic impediment is a reason to deny a dock is not a well-founded principle under the law, and it's not a well-founded principle under your code. Your code does not speak to that. If that was a consideration, again, docks do not fall under scenic rights. There's a limitation. Municipality has a right to reasonable limitations, but the fact that this board has adopted a code that grants docks takes away the concept that if you meet the criteria for the dock, the board can still say, no, they can't fit together. That would be, to use the phrase, arbitrary and capricious, as I'm sure we all know the definition of that. So I just wanted to remind the board of that. I heard there were comments regarding the scenic issues. Again, reasonable alternatives would be if we didn't meet these requirements, or we needed a variance if we exceeded the requirements of this code. And we don't exceed the requirements of this code, there's no reason to consider a more reasonable alternative. The fact that there is a mooring does not prohibit the right of wharfage. Again, I think I've made my point. We do appreciate your time on this matter, and to answer any questions you may have, I'm sure you're well informed. Thank you.
I would just like to say one thing more. The term adventurous swimmers, it's up to you if you're an adventurous swimmer, if you want to go and swim around that area. We're not talking about adventurous swimmers at the beach club or the swimming area. We're talking about children. We're talking about young people who are on rafts. We are talking about children that jump off the dock and swim to the dock that's out there that the club puts out. We're talking about people who jump off the pier and do their laps. I have an 82-year-old neighbor that's doing that all the time. That's what this is. This is not just about the dock and its rights for a riparian owner. This is about what's next door. What's next door is also part of Shelter Island culture. It's watching the races. On Wednesday nights, families get together. They go down there and look at the boats come in. The kids are in the water. The parents have picnics. It's close. It's less than 100 feet away from the two lines, as I said before. So let's just remember that and be clear about that. This is not just about a dock. This is about particularly where that dock is in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Sorry, that was driving me crazy. All of a sudden, I was like, why can't I see? Found the reason.
It's Stella Lagutis again from the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corp. I have 3 comments to make. Number one, I don't think it's right to only say that you should be looking at one section, the dock code section. I believe, as does our board, that this board, the town board, should be looking at the code in its entirety. And one thing I just wanted to paraphrase, if you look, so I already mentioned the zoning code and where that comes into play. Section 40-6 of the town code, which talks about operation near bathers, It says, "No boat propelled other than by hand shall be operated within 100 feet of any public or semi-public beach regularly used for bathing or swimming." That's paraphrase. So again, you've got to look at the entirety of the code, not just the checklist of, is it, within the right length of depth of water, et cetera. Number two, John had made a comment that there's an accumulation of properties and that there's a primary residence right there. Okay, but there are 3 properties that are owned by this homeowner, and they all have separate tax lot numbers. So the code applies to a tax lot. And does that mean that I can have a house in the center and I happen to have waterfront property and that's my accessory structure? So the fact that there is proximity is not the issue. The issue is that it's 3 different pieces of property. My last comment is, and I think if you look at one of the items, one of the appendices that Lori had brought out, it's the Costello picture of the dock, and he extended out the riparian rights into the water from the property lines on either side. And they're very straight. But if you look at 4 Bluff and you look at 3 Bevan, which are the 2 properties that are between the beach club and 6 Bluff, they're pie-shaped. So my question to this board would be, if we did the same thing that Costello Marine did and extended out these lines for riparian rights, you basically have a mishmash. I mean, you would have people, moorings, docks, everywhere, overlapping one another. So it's not as clean cut as to say that you've got this like perfect perpendicular property line that extends into the water. So if you would please consider those points, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
John Featherman?
Hi, representing the Pike family. I just want to be clear on the fact that the boat traffic that is existing today on the 2 moorings will be the same with the dock. There seems to be the concern or the public comments that increased boat traffic is of safety concern. And the boat traffic will remain. It's the 2 vessels. The 2 vessels will be using the proposed dock as a fixed point of navigation, which is a safer method. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Back to the board. We want to close this. The question that I want to have you look at, Thomas, is looking at the DEC application and looking at our code. It looks like this would fall under the old dock code and not the new. I just want to make sure that when the board evaluates that we are looking at the right code section. But I don't know if that's a reason to not close this evening.
Well, I'm not sure, I'd have to look at it, but I think the board would probably, if I'm gonna look at that and produce a memo or something to the board, I would think we would need to leave the record open, because I would assume you would want to respond to that.
If I could, yes.
Yeah, so I would say maybe, if you give me, 10 days to write a memo and then hold it open for written comment until the 22nd.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I just think that, board should, if there's anything else, and are we, is it leaving it open for just that, or, broader comment from?
Leaving things open.
I know.
But I felt like we needed to address that properly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't the board attorney when this came up, so.
What does the rest of the board think about that?
If we can pick it up and close them on the 22nd, that would be great. I do
The
think we should.
21st. Or 22nd, you're right, 22nd is our next meeting. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to have a definitive answer on which
Mhm.
version of the code we're supposed to be reviewing this under.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that. So adjourning to the 22nd.
Oh, do a full adjournment, not just for written correspondence.
I'm okay with closing with written correspondence if that's.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do that. Close except for written correspondence through the 22nd. Benjamin, I'll let you think for a second. Benjamin, do you have a
Yeah.
thought?
Um, I'm okay with that, but I never thought that we were considering this under the new code. When did this idea come up?
The applicant has been making references to the new code section as opposed to the old code section.
All right, then we can leave it open to written correspondence to the 22nd. That's fine. But I think we all would like to wrap this up.
Yes, I mean, that's why I hesitated bringing it up, but I felt I had to. So we'll hold it open for,
The 22nd?
That's our next town
Our
board
next,
meeting.
yeah. Yeah, so close it with written correspondence.
Yes,
22nd.
yes.
Be specific, is it just
I was
written
gonna
on this issue or just for anything?
I would say just this issue.
Yeah,
We
just-
received so much.
Just
comment.
which code section that we're applying to this application.
I'll produce a memo to the board by December 11th, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to respond by the 22nd. That will be the only written correspondence, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we don't
Yes.
run into any confusion.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Something that I didn't mention earlier with respect to the various public hearings is we did have for O'Sullivan, 74 Peconic Wetlands application, the applicant did ask for an adjournment. So when we get to that, I'm going to open that public hearing and then immediately adjourn it until January 12th. So I just wanted, if anyone is hanging out for that application, wanted to give you an opportunity to know what was happening and not have to hang out until we get there. The next public hearing is for XP Property LLC, Harry and Kathy Titonis, 2 Charlie's Lane dock application. And it was at the request of the applicant that we reopen this public hearing. So do we have anyone from the applicant here?
Last I know that it got sent back to the WMAC, but they issued their memo, they don't want to look at it again, and now they're coming back with. So I think at this point, they're hoping that the town board just picks it up and decides.
Okay. Don't have anyone here. They asked for it to be reopened and it was communicated to them that it was today's date, right?
Yeah, but it was a WMAC, still in WMAC hands, so the town board needs to either take it over or wait for WMAC to reissue another memo that they already did.
They're saying that they're not going to.
Okay, so the WMAC is not going to write a report.
No, no second opinion. Okay. All right, open this up to the public. All right, there being no public, I suggest we close this then.
Yeah, I mean, we close it and then rule on the original.
Yeah, we looked at this already, okay?
Mhm. Yeah, there's no new information. Okay, so I'll make the motion to close. I have a second.
Second here, okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's closed. All right, the next one is Vitality. So we have The Sun is Shining LLC, Gasper Vitale, 32 South Midway Road, a dock application.
This one didn't meet the setbacks with the town landing, so they were trying to see if they can come up with another alternative.
We have not heard from them.
And we don't have a WMAC report.
No. On this one, I say we adjourn it, but with no date, with no date certain, so it will have to be renoticed to pick it back up again.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And the next public hearing that we were reconvening is Gordon Thompson, 8C Pheasants Lane. It was a dock application. We had one public hearing on it, and the neighbor had some objections and wanted some time in order to apply to the Army Corps of Engineers or DEC and/or to see if it kind of dovetail their work with the Thompson application. Is there anyone here from Thompson? I see the neighbor, Tobin Cohane.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I got stuck in a hearing today. I was coming out. I had sent something the last moment that cites law that relates to individual permits as opposed to general permits from the DEC. There is stuff to digest for the board. I would like to be there personally, and if we can have this at the next board meeting, I'd be grateful, because it would give a chance for the board to review new information that I think is important, that deals with the DEC's permit, and with my being included in the permit that's being requested, but that it has to be what is in place, which does not involve a return. And there's also the issue of a plank fence above in a flood zone, in a FEMA flood zone, that relates also to shore preservation. I would appreciate if I could do that at the next meeting so that I could be sure that I'm there, because I'm having trouble with, I'm doing this on my phone. I wasn't expecting any of this. I thought I'd be out there today, but by the time I was done, it was 4, and I'd have to go 100 miles each way. If the board could possibly allow me to do this at the next meeting, review what I have sent, which I'm not sure if it was received, and it was sent, there were projections by NOAA, and as to the future tides, a lot of photographs were sent, and I have to find a way to consolidate them and have somebody help me do it. And if this could be put off to the next meeting, I'd be grateful.
Okay, thank you. Doesn't appear there's anyone else who wishes to speak on this. How does the board feel about adjourning this until December 22nd?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn until December 22nd.
Thank you very much.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so the next adjournment was the Courtney O'Sullivan, 74 Peconic Avenue, wetlands application. And the applicant, as I said a few minutes ago, requested that we adjourn until January 12th, 2026. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Sorry, yes.
No.
That's all it is. Okay. We will go back into the regular meeting. And let's discuss tomorrow's work session for a minute. We had a light agenda, not knowing what was going to be, well, thinking some of these were not going to be closed and most of them were not. I don't want to put Tetonis on for tomorrow since even though we just closed it, I'll put that on for next week. But since we are not closing Thompson and we are not closing O'Sullivan, that just wiped out our agenda for tomorrow.
We just have public comment and board member reports.
Yes, so what I was going to suggest is if we could have a brief executive session to talk about contracts and employees tonight, then we will cancel tomorrow's work session. So how does the board feel about that?
That sounds lovely. Would you want to do the executive session right now?
Yes, yeah, and it's just a couple of light items. I mean, not light, but just quick items, so.
I'm okay with it.
All right, okay, so we'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.